Sometimes we have situations in our lives where we want someone that we deeply respect, that we know has a great spiritual connection with the Father, to pray on our behalf and to take our needs before His throne. What if we know that the Son of God Himself prays for us? In John chapter 17, verse 20, Jesus says, "Neither do I pray for these alone." And He's talking about His apostles, the ones that He had just prayed for. He says, "Neither do I pray for these alone, but for all of those also who shall believe in me through their word." Jesus is praying for all believers. That includes you and me. Jesus prays for us. Jesus has taken us to the throne of God even before we were born. And what does He pray about? In verse 21, He says, "that they may be one." Jesus doesn't pray about our health. Jesus doesn't pray about our wealth. Jesus doesn't pray about any material thing for us, but He prays for the spiritual unity, that we may be one. He prays for something much deeper, much greater, much longer lasting. In fact, it's eternal, that we would be one. And what's the basis of the oneness that He prays for? Listen in verse 21. "As you, Father, are in me, and I in you." Jesus wants us to be one with one another, just like He is one with His Father. What an incredible goal, what an incredible thought when we contemplate what Jesus is praying on our behalf. In the remainder of verse 21, He says that the world may believe that you have sent me. You see, it communicates a message to the world that we are God's people because we are one with one another, just like God is one with His Son, Jesus Christ. What often prevents us from being one? Well, number one. You see, we're looking out for number one. We want to be number one. And because we want to be number one, that prevents us from being one together. Jesus had just dealt with that with His disciples, with the apostles. Just moments before this, they had been disputing with one another about who was the greatest, who would be, number one, who would be the best, who would be the top, who would have the greatest seat right next to Jesus. Jesus demonstrated to them in John 13 that to be the greatest, you had to be a servant. So when Jesus prays for us in John 17 to be one, He's praying about our humility. He's praying for us to be servants. He's praying for us to forget about being number one, just be one. And when you read on in Jesus' prayer, there's something marvelous about that. He says, "And the glory that you gave me, I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them, and you in me, that they may be made perfect or complete in one." Let's be one like Jesus prayed.